Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Life and Sound podcast. I'm your host, Kid Capone. Today, I got a very special guest, Five. He's a, is it Five or Five Crazy?
Shit, that's a tough question. I mean, I can go by anything, but Five's good, Five Crazy's good.
Nice.
Older name 561's good, but you know.
Hey, that's what's up. But he's from Palm Beach, Florida, right?
Yep.
Excellent. And I've just recently started following you, but I've heard the demos of the samples and stuff on your Instagram. I heard the Aperture samples that were in there. Really good stuff, bro. Like, good work to be proud of. So I guess I'll start with some of the easier stuff. How did you choose the name Five?
Shit, so I started making music when I was around 13, 14, 8th grade. So I would do it as a hobby first, like just fucking around on FL Studio. So then my friends were like, yo, you should get a name. So I was like, or they were like, it was like Young Celery or some stupid shit was my first name. So, and then I decided, yo, this shit is not a brand. Like, that's not going to work out at all. So I was like, all right, cool. So what can I base my name off of? So 561, the number is the area code of Palm Beach.
Nice.
So that's just kind of where I came from. Like, I kind of wanted to represent like where I came from type shit. And then also, like, when I lock in with people and they see my phone number, like, oh, shit. So it all matches up. So, yeah. That's basically where it came from. And I just shortened it to Five because I feel like it was more professional. And, like, Five Crazy, like, the crazy part comes from an old tag I used to use, Five You Crazy. So
you just put them together?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, the Five Crazy definitely seems like it's easier to brand for yourself.
Yeah.
Nice.
For sure.
So you said you started like producing and making music when you were about 12 or 13. What was your relationship like with music before then?
So as far as music goes, from a really young age, I was surrounded by a lot of music. My mom's Puerto Rican, so I was surrounded by a lot of Spanish music when I was growing up, like reggaeton and all that.
Nice.
And then obviously like my cousins, they got me into like hip hop. The Carter 3 by Wayne was the first album that I listened to, or that I was able to like listen to at like a young age. I was like 6 or 7. I didn't understand what the fuck was going on, but I remember I really liked A Milli, for sure.
Definitely, that album's a classic.
Yeah, and then I like obviously when I'm like older and I listen back to Wayne's older discography and a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to remember, like Outkast.
Oh yeah.
Wayne and Outkast was a lot, yeah. And a lot of Spanish music, too, outside of hip-hop.
So what kind of sparked the transition for you to decide, like, I want to start producing, kind of, like, really taking this more seriously? Or even just for fun, I guess?
I was just, like, on YouTube one day. I think it was the summer. I was on YouTube one day, and, like, I've always been interested in music, but, like, I never really put it together, like, how people actually made the instrumentals. Because that's one part that I really liked. Like more than like the artist, I like more so like the instrumental. So I never really put it together like how they did that shit. So I just went on YouTube and then I actually figured out there's programs like FL Studio, like Ableton, and like I started watching people like Sharp and like Busyworks Beats, bro.
Of course,
so
dude.
Then I just kind of treated it sort of like a video game when I was getting into it, and then I kind of just started realizing like the actual musical aspect of it.
Nice. So did you jump into sample making, or where did you start, and then where did the transition kind of happen?
So sample making, so I was making beats. I started in like 2017. So I was making beats for like 2017, 2018, all the way to like I'd say probably mid 2019 is where I started making like loops, and then so I started making loops. They weren't good. And then I made loops throughout like mid-2019 all the way probably up until quarantine. So probably March 2020. And then I would just consider them like loops, like not anything special. There's no like depth to them, but just simple stuff.
There's like a simple foundation though.
I think there's a difference between like making like a composition between making like a simple loop or something like that.
I would definitely agree.
Yeah. So I started off making that. And then an introduction to sample making, I would probably say, was when I started using like Discord a lot. So then obviously that leads into me meeting like the Crzy, like it was on the Crzy Sound Discord. but they're split mine now. So it was that Discord, shit, Internet Money Discord, and then I met Elkin, and the Trojan ones. We'll get into that later.
Of course.
And then another person that also, it was, well, not really a person, but it was just like a group of people. The Kingsway libraries for sure.
Oh yeah, phenomenal
I
work.
discovered those like the end of 2019. I was like, yo, I need to level my shit up after hearing that. Like,
I feel that. I mean, I remember the first time I heard Kingsway was 2016, like when he first started, before Drum Broker was really even like going. Because I remember, especially at that time, it seemed like everybody was just kind of trying to copy Drake's sound, that kind of like lo-fi underwater pads,
yeah,
like
40 sound.
Yeah, everybody was trying to copy that, it seemed like, and everybody was using a lot of VSTs and stuff, but I remember my friends and I wanting other kind of music. We just wanted something more, like more lush compositions, and we saw that Drake, the 0 to 100 sample was a Kingsway sample. And so we went to Kingsway, we looked up Frank Dukes and found his library, and it was life-changing. That was like my first taste of samples where I was like, people can do this? This is a career? Yeah, it was crazy, bro.
And not even to mention that 0 to 100 sample. If I'm not mistaken, that was only like the first couple seconds of it or something.
100%. It's like a long like 3 or 5 minute sample like song, and he just took that little like 2-second loop.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Definitely.
Yeah. Great work.
So
really
when do you feel like you grew out of making loops and you really felt like, okay, now I'm making compositions, like actual samples?
Well, to me it was like because in late 2019 early 2020 I feel like my work wasn't really that good, but I was still like pushing, like trying to get placements and stuff like that. So once I realized when there's more to this career than getting placements and getting like signed and all that, I feel like I took more time to like just discover like the craft.
Nice.
And that was probably, for a time frame, that was probably around May 2020 or June 2020, July, something like that.
So basically, really in the last year and a half, you feel like you've like stepped up your production and compositions.
Yeah, I consider this my rookie year.
For sure, bro. For sure. What were some things that kind of changed your production that made you feel like, all right, this isn't just a loop anymore. Like it's actually growing and evolving?
I feel like processing is one of the big things.
And what do you mean by that?
Just like effects, like certain effects. Like I used to just run shit dry through FL, and like I didn't really like figure out how to like put effects on, or not really that. But I didn't figure out how like the purpose of some effects. Like I would use like reverb and stuff like that, but like I wouldn't make it sound like vintage, or I wouldn't make it have any feeling in it.
I get that.
Oh yeah, another thing is just making it sound like more human. I feel like my older loops didn't have that like capability.
Did they feel more like kind of programmed and clicked in?
Yeah, crazy.
Do you play any instruments or anything like that?
I actually don't.
That's amazing.
The only thing is like I can finesse a little bit on the keys, but besides that, nah. But that's a goal of mine in 2022. I'm trying to learn more on the keys. I'm ordering a guitar soon. Obviously, I just got that kalimba. I have a flute laying around somewhere. I haven't gotten the time to play it, but that's a goal of mine next year for sure.
That's amazing. Do you feel like you don't feel like held back or anything though currently with like your current knowledge? Like you still are able to make great compositions and great work.
Yeah, it's just all a matter of like what you have and what you know. As long as there's like feeling in it, you could tell it's made from the heart.
100%.
Kobali always says.
I agree, bro. Like he was somebody I really resonated with when we were talking about that. And even when I talked to XY recently, him just explaining how he didn't really have anything to work with, but he just made, what he had work. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people to learn is don't let what you have right now limit you. Just do the most with what you have.
Yeah, you always got to finesse it some way.
Agreed. So how did you get into the sound design kind of thing? Because I love the whole Aperture pack, and the presets for Analog Lab are phenomenal sounding.
Yeah, thank you. So sound design, that comes from the homies at Loophole. Shout out Louis Flynn. He taught me like everything I know about sound synths and like sound design, and especially like maneuvering like the Arturia plugins. Louis Flynn actually held a course. I'm pretty sure it's still up right now, but he held a course on sound design. I was one of the first people to like demo it out or like test it out.
That's amazing.
And it was like three like zooms like this, and then he would kind of share screen. He would share a screen, and he would just go over like each Arturia VST and how to like maneuver it. And I learned a lot from it. And
Nice.
then obviously he gave me the opportunity. Him and Eli and Nahum, they obviously gave me the opportunity that I'm blessed for to release a pack or two or maybe even more. So I dropped Providence. That was like an Analog Lab pack. I thought it was really quality. They thought it was top quality. Aperture is one of my favorite kits that I've been using recently. Like, I've been using my own kits a lot, and Aperture is one of them. So
Yeah, Aperture was great, and I definitely, after I heard a lot of the previews, I knew I had to like cop it because
yeah,
the Analog Lab, especially I feel like in the sample maker world, is just so useful, especially if you can't go shell out, thousands for all the real synths. And I feel like you have more control over the VSTs themselves.
yeah, for sure. So also, damn, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say Analog Lab is like crazy. Like that's like basically my only used synth. Besides like the Rev 2 I have, the only synth I really use is Analog Lab. That's about it.
That's awesome. And do you feel like how often do you say you would pull up a patch or like try to design new patches?
Pretty much like a couple every week. I mean, or every couple weeks. I kind of just go in and like design. Recently, I've been more like learning how to use my Rev 2 that I just got right there. So
Nice.
I've been learning how to design patches on that, and I'm just been collecting like a bunch of stuff and just using it.
Do you ever run the hardware synth through guitar pedals and effect like external effects or anything?
Actually, I just ordered a shallow water, and they hoed me because it was supposed to come in yesterday, but now it's coming like Thursday or Friday. So or tomorrow or Friday.
That's annoying for sure, man.
Yeah, but
That's all
it's
right though.
coming.
Yeah, you're gonna get it and you're gonna be cooking up before you know it though.
Yeah, you're gonna go crazy.
So, what are some of your daily habits like? Kind of when do you wake up? When do you go to sleep? Like, what's your daily routine sort of like?
Well, me, I'm a senior in high school, so I'm still in school. So usually, right now I'm on winter break, obviously, but let's see, like a normal day in the life through school, right? So I get home around like 12-ish, 12:30, get all my school stuff done, and then I kind of just go straight into music if I don't have any more plans that day. But if I go straight into music, usually I start off like making beats or something for an artist that I need to make beats for, or just any like opportunities. Send samples out to people for sure, and then it's usually the times where I make my best samples are usually like late at night. I don't know what it is, but
I definitely
That's
feel
usually
like that's
how it
a similar thread just in the music world in general. I feel like a lot of great music and records are made definitely at night.
and all the placements and snippets that I've gotten, they all happen at like 3 a.m., which is crazy. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but yeah, it's always something about nighttime. I don't know.
It's magic, bro. I feel like it's because everybody's asleep and you can really like channel and tap into this sleeping energy that's not being used. Everybody else is recharging and you're on full go mode and you can just take all that energy that's not being used.
Yeah, for sure.
Now,
But,
I know you're in high school, so you can or can't say it or whatever, but do you ever like smoke or drink and like use that to create, or are you pretty much like sober when you're creating?
When I'm creating at home, sober for sure.
That's good, bro. Like, I've just noticed that. I saw Oscar Zulu is like that. I mean, just a lot of people in general. I feel like there's some. Granted, it's not like it's a terrible thing if you smoke or drink, but I've just noticed.
Definitely not.
I've just noticed a lot of the people who are doing a lot of like big things, like they have really healthy habits.
Yeah.
And they're trying to keep their like brain firing and functioning at a super optimal level.
Yeah. You can't really be like lacking or anything when you're doing it. You just gotta like, I feel like I lock in best at home, and yeah, for sure.
Now, what is like the rhythm of your creative process like? Like generally, where do you like to start and kind of let the process flow?
So when I'm making a sample, usually, recently I've been starting off with bass, but like traditionally I would just start off with some chords. Like I would either play out or like click in some chords on like Keyscape or something, and then I would replace the sound with something different. And then I just think like as soon as I get like an idea or like a feeling for the sample, then I just move on to different instruments. Like I would add like a pad to like layer it or something, or like bass. And then one important thing is texture for sure.
And
I feel like I have to take a lot of time putting in the correct textures.
what are some textures or things that you feel like really make a nice texture in a sample?
Recently I've been using Portal, which is a crazy VST. It's underrated.
Dude, it's so good. I feel like especially for sample making, that plugin is just right on the money for what we're going for.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Like the grains and like the textures from Portal, especially combined with like a synth or something, or even like a live instrument, they're crazy. And then also, sheesh, from like a one-shot kit or something that I have laying around, just look through, like once I drag it in, if I like the sound, just maybe like time stretch it or something, or pitch it down, and fit it in.
How do you design your one-shots?
Oh, one-shots, I would usually just make a sound in a synth, and then after that I would process it a little bit. Like for Aperture, I made most of those in Arturia.
So how does the process kind of go? Like if you were to decide like, all right, I want to make, a few one-shots right now. Like take us through that process.
So I would probably just, first off, I would pick out like the waveform. So I would be like a sine or like a triangle or something like that. So then I would decide like what kind of sound I want. And then off of that, I would just kind of just customize like the attack and all of that, the ADSR envelopes. And then it would probably just be messing around on like some of the knobs and just trying to find like some unique, because that's something important that I feel like like more people with one-shot kits should do. They need to make their sounds like more unique.
I would agree.
So I try to find like a unique like characteristic for each sound, whether that be like the waveform or like the effect on it or something like that. So then I would run it through Arturia, and then I would run it through like a tape VST or something, and then maybe I would put like, say like Guitar Rig or something, or like some Sound Toys plugins on it. Just make it sound unique, and then just bounce it out, put it in, and finish it up.
Nice. What do you look for when you're like looking for a good one shot? Whether that's, your own when you're done, like, all right, this is dope, or you're looking through somebody else's one shot. Like what are sounds that you generally gravitate towards?
Personally, I would look for things that don't have that much reverb on them, because I feel like I could just add that myself. And then maybe, because a lot of the times that I use one shots, I use them like not as much for a melodic part of the sample, but more for a texture part of the sample. So I would like, it goes back to like the unique characteristic thing, basically.
Nice. I mean, I think that's really smart, because as much as, sample makers and people, we play a lot of the instruments or we write a lot of these like musical parts, I feel like textures and one shots really are the little spice that makes your samples great. It's kind of
exactly.
like, I always compare it to when you're eating food. It's like if you're eating like an egg scramble or something, it's like you got ham and cheese and egg, but if you put parsley on it, you don't want parsley every bite. It's just that little spice that you'll get it once every like fourth bite, and you're like, oh, there it is, and I feel like it's similar in music.
That's well said.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that.
Nah, dude, music and cooking are like the two most synonymous things. I always tell people, if you're recording with a mic, like, the gain, there's like the fire on the stove. If you have the gain up too high, you're going to burn whatever you're trying to record, and vice versa. If you got it too low, you're not going to capture it at the level you need to. Yeah. So, yeah, music and cooking, man, they go together.
Sheesh. That's something I got to learn, bro.
What, how to cook?
Start cooking. Yeah, bro. Uber Eats has been fucking abused lately.
I feel you. And, like, once you start cooking, like, I feel like in a weird way it'll affect your music, too. I know it sounds weird, but I'm somebody...
I understand that.
Yeah.
I feel like you would get inspiration from that for sure.
I mean, everything in life, even from, like, for me, I like cars. I like going out for walks. I like uh, learning about Japanese culture, and I feel like that all ends up tying back into the music creation in different ways that I don't even know sometimes. It just kind of comes out.
Yeah.
What are some interests you have outside of music that kind of help you stay balanced?
Sheesh. Outside of music, honestly, not really much, to be honest. Maybe like going outside, you know?
Definitely. I
Or
have
like
to go out.
seeing,
I have to go out on walks every day, bro.
like especially after quarantine, like just going out, especially like with your friends or something. It's something you need, I feel like, in order to stay balanced. I'm about to start working out too.
Good
Again,
stuff.
so
Good stuff, bro. Like health
yeah.
is super important, and I feel like a lot of people, we get caught up in being in the studio a lot of the time and creating and
Yeah.
always wanting to have a lot of output. But it really is the balance of everything that makes life more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's not everything. Like if you keep a balance, if everything's moderate, like everything is good and moderate, like if you keep everything moderate, then you'll get like 10 times more the output
I agree.
at the end of the day.
I remember when I was younger, I grew up skateboarding. And for me, it seemed like if I hit the skate park every single day, I wouldn't be improving as much as if I gave myself a break of a day or two and I'd come back to the park. And something about taking like that one day away from there and coming back gave me a fresh perspective. And I feel like even creating music is pretty similar.
Yeah, but like things like outside of music that give me inspiration that might not be like tangible, you know, stuff like fashion, like photography, kind of like that stuff. I get inspired.
Definitely.
For sure.
What is it about fashion or photography that you feel like, moves you or gives you an emotional response?
It's just like, I don't know. I feel like it makes you like feel more confident. You know?
Definitely. Like, what is it about fashion that attracts your eye or whatever?
I mean, designing. That's definitely one of my interests. Like, once I build like a platform,
Nice.
just designing, and like the designs and just like the culture behind it. I guess
I would agree.
pretty cool.
What is some of your future plans for you and your brand? For whether that's for you as just the Five Crazy brand or whether that's work you're doing with Loophole. What are some of your future plans?
As far as my future plans, I definitely want to drop more sample packs for sure. I don't even have an official pack out yet. I think that's something I gotta change in 2022, and we're working on it.
Nice, bro.
So definitely more sample packs. I do want to have more of a YouTube presence, for sure. Just teaching people like tutorials. Placing my own beats, placing my own samples, without the help of much like anybody else really.
Yeah, just kind of going at it your own.
Yeah, like I like collaborating a lot, but like also to have that ability to play stuff on your own and like make opportunities for other people, that's like a secret weapon.
I agree 100%.
So also on top of that, building my team hits only with Too Easy and Manny. They're really cool people. They helped me out like through the last half of this year for sure.
I just started following them. Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit? What is Hits Only?
So it's just basically kind of a service, not really a service, but like it's kind of like a family, you know.
I like that.
It's just a playmaking family, you know. Like we go to each other when we need like opportunities or when Easy needs like samples or loops or beats, we can send it to him, and he just makes the plays happen, you know.
Definitely.
And like it's definitely like a family.
How did that
Sure.
formulate and kind of start?
So I met Easy in like May, and he just really fucked with my stuff. So when we started just a working partnership, we've been adding more people and just building from there. It's really
And
good.
what's the kind of goal of the brand? Like where do you see it optimally working out and going?
I'm not sure. We'll take it step by step. But that's all Easy and Manny stuff. Like I'm just a member, you know.
Yeah,
But they got the vision, and I trust it, so I'm rolling with them.
I agree 100%. I feel like being part of a team, multiple teams even, is very, very valid and helps you
Nah,
stay the
You
course.
definitely need to. Like, you definitely need to. You have to have all the people that surround you in order to make you better.
I agree. Do you feel like the Chosen Ones and Hits Only has been positively affecting your creation process?
Yeah, as far as inspiration, for sure, the Chosen Ones. Man, they changed like my whole career. I'm gonna be honest. Them and Eli changed my whole outlook on sample making, all that.
What do you feel like how do you feel like you looked at it before versus now? What has changed?
I feel like just feeling, you know, or like, yeah, just the way like it makes like you feel, you know, like music, the musical aspect. That's all I'm gonna leave it at.
Focusing more on creating something that moves you emotionally versus something that on
That's
paper
just for
is
like,
just
a
technical.
placement or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you can feel, I feel like you can feel people's intentions in their music.
yeah, that's exactly what Kabali says too.
I
And,
agree.
like, that's something I live by too.
Yeah, my
I
friend,
mean, you can hear it.
my friend and I, we always talk about, I feel like you can hear people's habits in their music. And I'm talking like, you can hear if somebody's been, like a rapper, for instance, or a singer, you can tell when somebody's been drinking more or smoking more. You can kind of hear it in their tone, like whether that's needing more auto tune or maybe their songs just aren't even hitting like how they did in the early parts of their career. I feel like there's definitely a correlation between taking care of yourself and having good habits and like keeping that career going and actually staying relevant and putting out good content.
Yeah, 100%. It's really important.
How much of the work you've done in the past, whether that's when feel like you were making loops versus compositions, how much of that in the past affects your creation now or influences it now?
Well, in the past, I was on YouTube a lot. I would be watching a lot of tutorials. So obviously, YouTube kind of like taught me how to use FL, and taught me kind of like elements, like slight elements of music theory and stuff like that. So obviously that stuck with me throughout, but also like sound selection and stuff like that, it just kind of stuck with me throughout.
It's very important. I feel like that's pretty much one of the first things you could do to really level up is choosing the right sounds in your productions.
Yeah, because that's like the baseline. Like, if you don't have good sounds, like the whole product's gonna be terrible. So
It's true. You could have great chords and like great melody and everything, and it can sound good, but it definitely is about the texture and quality of the sound itself.
yeah, that's what we're just trying to push.
As far as
Crazy.
like the loophole stuff and everything.
Yeah, I know. Like when Eli was teaching me a lot about samples, like he was huge on texture, and
I would
feel
agree.
like that's what I like about like a lot of like these new sample makers. Everybody focuses on texture because that's like where the feeling comes from.
I agree. And I feel like now we're in this beautiful space where a lot of the sample makers and people making music are taking the modern sounds or the modern kind of feeling, but also incorporating that older feeling, and it's all blending together in this new melting pot of sound. And
Yeah.
it's nothing like you've ever heard before in the past.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is I think someone said it. I think Kobali might have said it in his interview. But if you listen to like what you're trying to make, like I remember what he said like about like listening, like if you want to make like R&B or something, don't listen to like modern R&B.
Yep.
When you want to make old R&B, yeah, that's something I live by. Like I've been listening to a lot of like 90s R&B and 2000s R&B recently. A lot of like Dark Child production, if you know who that is, Rodney Jerkins.
Yeah, Rodney Jerkins is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
you're studying like the god tier of R&B. Then I feel like 90s R&B was like a great peak for not even peak, but it was a mountain for the time, because the Weeknd, Frank Ocean type R&B and things we know now, the Tory Lanez, Brent Faiyaz is not how it used to be.
It's not the same at all.
I feel like in a great way, R&B now is way cooler than it used to be. Like, don't get me wrong, the old stuff is cool, like as far as the production and everything, but I always felt like the lyrics and the content was kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, it's the production for sure.
I would agree.
I see what you mean by like nowadays it being cooler, like especially with the trap soul stuff.
100%. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like before, it was always, you could tell the lyrics were meant to get through a label to get on the radio, whereas now people can just be more unfiltered and they don't have to be as reserved and they can just say what they want.
Yeah, because the radio isn't much of a presence as it was. So
yeah. What is some of the music that's been, other than obviously the 90s R&B, what's some other stuff you've been listening to that's been affecting your creation process and your influence lately?
That's kind of interesting. Lately, more than new music, I've been listening to stuff from like my childhood, kind of.
Nice.
Like, you know, those like late 2000s kind of like Dr. Luke, Benny Blanco.
Oh yeah.
Like the early 2010s pop, the stuff that would be on the radio. I've been listening to that a lot. I've been tapping into reggaeton more. Older hip hop. Yesterday, I just re-listened to like most of the Wayne stuff.
Nice.
Over this break, yeah. I've just been kind of exploring new music that I haven't like tapped into yet.
What do you feel like you're kind of pulling from those influences? Like, what are you gonna take back to your sound? Do you feel like? I
feel like, especially going back to the pop, I feel like sound design for sure. Because I don't know, it's something about the sounds, like I just love it.
And they've lasted, this many years, and they were huge hits. So there's obviously some magic in the frequencies.
There's
or in the
some
sound.
formula, yeah. But obviously, there's some songs that didn't age well, But obviously, like the sound selection for sure.
Yeah. How did you kind of get linked up with the people you're working with as far as, getting placements and sending out samples and starters? Like, how did you get linked up with some of these producers and stuff?
How did I get linked up? Let's see. So, it was probably around quarantine when I realized, damn, I should really take this seriously. So, one thing I wouldn't do now, but I did back then, is I literally just hit up everybody I could. And even when I wasn't even ready to, like, even when my work, like, is nowhere as cohesive as it is now, like, I would still hit people up and just ask if I could send samples. One tip I would give if you're trying to link up with people, in DMs, Instagram is a really powerful tool. In DMs, I would say, or I wouldn't say yo. That's one thing. But I would say, like, I have some crazy samples for you. Most people would just leave it at that and then hope and pray that they get an email that they want to. But I would provide, like, some snippets of your work.
Smart.
Because that kind of gives you a purpose, and like so that the guy doesn't have to like click through your profile. He can just make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, because the easier it is for them to find your work, the easier it is for them to want to work with you.
Exactly. And then one thing I wouldn't even rely on, like email lists. If you're trying to place beats, like email lists are a no-go. In my opinion, I would try to like just develop a really good relationship with the people you're trying to work with. Or, like, say you're trying to get to an artist, just get to the people around them, kind of. And they'll probably just develop a relationship, and you'll probably get to where you want to be eventually.
I definitely would agree. Do you feel like, I saw on your profile that there's, like, a Uzi placement or something that you have. How did that kind of come about?
So that loop was my days of loop virtual making. So I made that loop in May 2020. And then I'd say around November 2020, my homie Ravis hit me, and he was like, "Yo, my friend East Jack needs to hit you. We just got, or him and you just got a record with Pop Hunter, the Corvette guy, and they want to drop it as like a single." So I was like, "Oh damn!" So then I linked up with him, got all the stuff settled, and then the original song dropped, so that went crazy on YouTube with the video, and then I remember the day. It was like December 16th, bruh. So it was probably around 2 or 3 a.m. I was sleeping. And then Uzi posts on his account that snippet that's on my account. So he like remixed the Takeoff thing. Because at the time, they had like a close like partnership. They were working a lot together. They were recording a lot together. So he Uzi really fucked with him back then. But now it's not so much the case. I'll probably explain that later. But Uzi remixed the song, and of course all my my IRL friends are calling me at 3 a.m. like spam calling me like, "Yo, this is your beat, like this is your song," And then like my producer friends were calling me too. So then obviously like my phone's blowing up. So I finally answer like about like after like 30 minutes of them calling me, like I wake up because I hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, "Yo, Uzi just got on takeoff." So I was like, "Yo."
That's
So then I
wild.
automatically go to his thing. Yeah, it's crazy. And then obviously I post it. The post went crazy, and then I got a lot of connections from that. Like that's what I consider like, like getting drafted into the NBA or like NFL.
100%.
That's what that feels like.
You got the cosign, and like you now have
Exactly.
the credibility.
So now, like, yeah, I use that week. That 2 weeks was a good period to start networking for sure.
So you realized in that moment, like, I'm getting a lot of attention right now. Like I gotta.
Yeah, you gotta capitalize.
So how were you prepared for that moment? I know
I wasn't.
You weren't. Like, I guess, what did you send out, or what did you when people were hitting you, what did you have to send out?
Oh, like as far as as melodies, I was prepared, but I just wasn't prepared like for like everything to hit me at once,
Yeah.
So obviously I got through it. I made I made some really solid connections. One person that hit me was Carl Legret.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Carl. That's the homie. But built a really solid relationship with him. I built a really solid relationship with a lot of people, to be honest, off just that one snippet.
That's good. How did you, kind of build those relationships? Like, what were those conversations kind of like?
It just, like, it all comes down to giving people, like, what they want or what they need, or, like, offering something that they don't have.
Definitely.
So, like, you just gotta be prepared.
About how many samples would you say you were, like, sending out when they were like, hey, I found you through this song, send me samples? Like, were you just sending them, like, 100 samples? Or
Nah. That is definitely not the way to go.
See? That's what I
You
want to
definitely
know.
want to send. You definitely So when you're sending to someone for the first time, I would say probably limit it to like 10 to 12 samples of your best work. So then that way they know like what like if they should fuck with you or not, like just based off those 10 samples. And then off of that, you still have more samples that you can go off of when they ask for another pack. Like, yo, I need another pack. So now you have more material you can send them. So you just keep loading them over time.
About how often are you finishing samples or, a pack, whether that's officially putting out a pack, obviously you haven't done yet, but
Yeah.
finishing like a pack of samples to send out about.
For somebody.
Yeah.
I don't really do exclusive samples. That's one thing. So when someone asks, like I'll just throw some stuff in. Lately when like Easy and Manny's been asking for stuff, I just make stuff. Like some new stuff, like new material. That's one thing I gotta say. When somebody asks you for new stuff, this is what I've been working on. Like if somebody asks you for new stuff, then you gotta make them new stuff.
Yeah.
Because like a reference when somebody asks you for stuff like period, you should always just make new stuff, because then you always just get inspired by like kind of what they're sending, and especially if they give you a reference, then it's easier to go off of.
Definitely. When typically from like when inspiration first strikes and you're making a sample, about how long until you have a completed idea or thought?
Probably around like, lately it's been longer, but usually around like 45 minutes to an hour.
Wow, you work really quick then.
Yeah.
So
It probably comes from when I used to make like loops and all that shit.
yeah, what's the process kind of like, you find that first sound and then like where do you go to first kind of thing? Like you said, lately you've been starting with the bass, but before you would start with chords or something. And then about how many layers do you like to add?
Lately I haven't been adding that much layers, cause I feel like you shouldn't have more than like 13 or 14 sounds in a sample or something like that. Like that's like complete max, and most of that goes to like texture.
Yeah.
At least in my case. So I wouldn't layer it too much, but I would just find like sounds that complement well, if that makes sense.
I would agree. I feel like the only times you start breaking into like big amounts of tracks are when you have like complete different sections where, this whole group of tracks isn't even playing in the beginning. It's like it comes in at a bridge or something.
Yeah, usually I would do that like with like one sound or two sounds, like just kind of like a B section.
Do you
Cause
like what are your sample like compositions like now versus, separating them from what a loop is? We know what a loop is, but
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
do you do to kind of make it feel like a sample and differentiate from a loop?
I feel like I feel like definitely the main difference is like the human sounding. And like obviously what I've been saying through this whole kind of podcast is just like texture and human feeling,
The two most
for sure.
important things?
In my opinion, yeah.
Definitely.
And obviously you gotta have a good melody to begin with. Or else those two things aren't even gonna matter.
I would agree. And as far as like having a good melody, that doesn't just exclusively mean a synth lead or a top line. That could be a
Yeah,
bass
nah.
melody. That could be, something else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll start moving on to my For the Nerds section. This will be, the
For sure.
plugins and those type of things that you use. What are some of your most regularly used plugins, whether that's, EQ and compression or VSTs?
Alright, so first I'll probably start off with VSTs. So obviously everything from Arteria. I'd say most of all, Analog Lab obviously has everything. But I've been using like the Mellotron stuff recently.
So good.
And I've been using Al Hugs packs from Mint to Foundry for Mellotron. They're crazy. So I like using those. The Juno synth in there and Prophet synth is pretty good. Let's see, Omnisphere. So recently after watching Monty Booker, I've just been using Omnisphere a lot more. Cause in one of his streams, like he just like told his viewers how to like get to every single sample in Omnisphere like completely dry. So aside from like presets, I've just been using like those samples because the presets usually got like too much like reverb and delay
100%.
on them. So like the original like root samples from Omnisphere are crazy because it's like endless and it's all different sounds. Like I really like underrated Omnisphere.
That's a
crazy plugin.
pro tip. I mean, I wouldn't have even known how to get to those dry like root sounds. So that right there is a golden piece of information, bro.
Yeah, there's a video by Monty somewhere on YouTube. You can probably find it.
Well, you're helping out the community already with that, bro.
Yeah. So VSTs. Contact is cool. I use it sometimes for like when I'm trying to get like live instruments, obviously.
Do you use the Rickenbacker bass?
Yeah.
Everybody uses the Rickenbacker bass.
Yeah, because it just works. I don't know. It just works.
I've heard it compared to, because I've used the Scarby pre-bass in there as well. That's based on like the Fender Jazz, the precision bass. And I definitely like the Scarby more. Like it sounds more vintage,
Yeah, I don't know. It just fits most of the time. Like the basses I use are either that or like one from Omnisphere or like Trillion or like from a one shot or something. Like from like one of XY's one shots or something.
Definitely. And then what about like, EQs, compressors, like, effects?
All right. So this is my favorite section. So EQs, I just use the normal like FL EQ, because ever since I found out you could brick wall in there, like there's like no use for any other EQ in my opinion. I don't know. And then
Have you ever tried
compressors,
have you ever tried the Fab Filter EQ?
Yeah, it was cool, but I mean like I may as well just use the regular fruity one.
The only reason I asked that is because I don't know if everybody knows this, but on the Fab Filter EQ, whatever point you make, you can right click on it and you can hit Make Dynamic, and it basically becomes a moving EQ at that little point. Like if it spikes too hard, it almost becomes like a compressor and it'll pull it back.
Oh, that's interesting.
And on the bottom, there's a piano roll. And if you open that piano roll, you can just click the little frequency point and drag it along the piano roll to the exact note that frequency is.
Damn, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I might have to check that out.
Also, another pro tip, since we're just talking about it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the Fab Filter Pro Q, also, whatever point you make, you can decide if you want that EQ point to cut out just the mid information and like leave the side info. It's like a mid-side EQ. You can choose it to cut just the left speaker or just the right. It's a super versatile EQ that I use on everything, and it's really powerful. So I would definitely recommend looking into it. Like I remember when I got my computer and I had to mix my friend's like album, I couldn't do it without that plugin. Like that was the most essential EQ I've ever had.
Damn. Yeah. Let's see. As far as other effects, let me look through.
Yeah.
I got my FL put up on my other monitor.
I like that, bro.
Let's see. Oh, waves. Waves is definitely underrated. I feel like a lot of people think it's like cliche or something, but stuff like CLA 76 is really good. King's microphone I use a lot. TG 12345, that's a good compressor. The Sheps, S1 imager for like making your sounds more stereo is really good. What else? J37 was cool, but I'm kind of over it now. But
have you tried Kramer tape at all?
Oh yeah. Kramer tape too. I was about to say that. Abbey Road, all Abbey Road stuff is really good too.
The Abbey Road plugins are so good. My only, not issue, but the thing I run into, which my computer can handle it and it's fine, but they definitely are CPU heavy. Like that Abbey Road,
for sure.
that Abbey Road plates reverb is, that'll use like 10% of your CPU right there.
Sometimes it'll be like crackling and like, yo, I gotta switch it out.
I know, but you know, the character's so good, and I like that you can choose, like a lot of people in that plugin, you know, it's got the A, B, C, or D, and that's like changing the material of the plate. It's changing it from like a gold plate, like the EMT 140 or the 240 or something else.
Yeah. One thing in ways that I really like is this plugin called Kaleidoscopes.
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't used it yet. What is that?
It's kind of like a flanger, like modulator type thing. It just makes it makes everything sound really weird.
But it like adds a lot of character to the sound. It sounds like.
Yeah. It's really, it's one of the situational plugins. You don't want to use it on everything. You can't really use it on everything.
Yeah.
It definitely adds.
When you're using the Waves plugins, do you ever click that little question mark, the little info box in them?
No, what does that do?
It'll open up the manual for the plugin, and it'll tell you what every knob and every little setting does on those plugins, and that has been a huge game changer for me. Like I know on the J37, I click the little question mark, and it tells you, you know, the tape types. It's like, oh, the 888 tape is based on the late 60s. This tape is based on the tape they used in the early 70s, and I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't opened that little question mark box.
Yeah, I'm about to go open the question mark on every single plugin right now.
I shit you not, bro. I've sat there one day and just clicked through every one and just learned, bro.
Sometimes you got to put those hours in, though. Like, I feel like it would pay off.
And it makes it easier because then when you come back to the plugin later, you know what everything does. You're like, I already know exactly what I'm going for. Or if you need to pull it out of your toolkit later, you already know exactly how to get the character you want out of it.
Yeah, the workflow definitely improves. One other thing from Waves, I would say, NS1, if you're trying to get rid of white noise. If someone sends you like a starter and it has a lot of white noise in it, you could use NS1 to take that out. And that works for vocals too.
Definitely.
Like I put that's in my vocal chain for vocals for sure.
Yeah, the noise suppressor is a great plugin.
Yeah. As far as other effects, the Sound Toy stuff is pretty cool. Melodyne for vocals, that's sauce. Melodyne is sauce.
Is that what you've been using on your vocals?
I've been using a mix of like either auto-tune or Melodyne, but it depends on like the type you're trying to go for. Like I know this children's choir thing is kind of a wave right now, like because of Q Beats and their recent work. I think with Nardo.
Definitely.
So if you're trying to go for that children's choir sound, don't use auto-tune, use Melodyne, because it sounds way more natural.
I agree.
If you're even trying to correct your vocals at all, but like it's in some of the time, like if you're trying to do that, you don't even need to. Portal for sure. Portal we mentioned earlier is crazy. I use it on like everything. As far as like reverbs, I use Vintage Verb from Valhalla a lot, and also like the Arteria reverbs too.
A good reverb that I use that's like my go-to is in the Waves bundle. It's called the Manny Verb. And I like that one because right when you open it, it's just meant to be super simple. It's just like hall, room, chamber, this, and then the decay times and everything aren't in milliseconds, they're in percentages. So like, I'm guessing they're tempo synced is what it is.
Oh, okay.
But it has it's really good, bro.
Let's see. Guitar rig guitar rig for sure. Though that's for like those weird effects. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe if you're trying to get something like that might be in like a pedal or something or like an external effect. If you're trying to get like that kind of feel, you could go into guitar rig and just like kind of mess around.
I definitely would agree with that.
Yeah. What else? There's this plugin called Comeback Kid that's pretty cool. I forgot who it's by, but that's like a delay that I use a lot. And
Sounds like there's a lot of like good stuff you're using in there then.
yeah, one thing also is Good Hurts. All their plugins are crazy. I use Can Opener a lot, and I also use like Tone Control and Wow Control. And then one thing that XY put me on recently, like a couple days ago, was like the Good Hurts Trem Control, which is like a tremolo, but you can modulate it. So like, I don't know, it's really cool.
It's not just like a static tremolo set to one setting.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want inside for the tremolo. And I found out like, damn, that's what he really used this in like every sample. After listening back.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
What are some of your most like regularly used instruments or pieces of gear you have outside of the digital space?
Well, obviously there's the Rev 2. I'm still learning it. So that's that. I've just been designing a lot. Not really so much using the stuff from the Rev 2. I've just been like learning it.
Yeah, you like
'Cause
diving
I don't
into
know if I'm ready.
the UI.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. The kalimba is in the mailbox that I gotta get. So I'm really interested in learning that. Outside of digital, I feel like that's about it.
Nice.
And
You're more
obviously
of
I'm about to use guitar.
yeah, you're more of like an in the box at this moment.
Yeah.
Nice. What are some of your favorite effects that you use to like transform or reshape a sound, whether that's, pitching it, reversing it, or whatever?
I feel like for reversing, I would record stuff in Addison and then like bounce it out and then just reverse it through there. For pitch shifting, FL just updated to like 20.9. They have that new Stretch Pro thing with the formant that you can change. So I've been like trying to figure that out. And then also pitch wheel.
Good stuff.
Pitch wheel's pretty good.
Nice. What are some of the most underrated or slept on plugins in your opinion?
Slept on plugins. There's a plugin called H910 Harmonizer that I've been using a lot on vocals specifically.
What does it do?
Let me pull it up really quick. So it's just kind of, I don't know exactly what it does. It just sounds kind of like a delay. But it's just really weird. Like it's like a delay but like chorus and vibrato, and
Okay.
it does a lot of stuff to your voice.
Yeah, it's a harmonizer, so it sounds like it's probably like similar to Microshift from Sound Toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like based on those like 90s kind of like doublers. It's not a doubler, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, well, yeah, there's settings in there that it can be a doubler, but yeah, it's more of like a delay, kind of like a really like short delay, I guess. And you could just mess around with it and create some like otherworldly stuff. I don't know.
How do you like to use it?
Crazy. I use it on my vocals. There's a preset in there called vocal thickener that I use on my vocals. Sometimes like it gives it like that. It's like a kind of chorusy feel. So
Nice. And what is some secret sauce that you wish you had known earlier on when you started out making music that has really helped you now?
Geez, secret sauce. Personally, I don't even know if there's such thing as secret sauce. I feel like that kind of just depends on you learning your DAW and learning like what you have access to, kind of. I feel like, okay, yeah, I guess that's my answer then.
Like learning your
Just kind
DAW?
of like, yeah, just get familiar with like the ins and outs of everything, so you have like an easier time with workflow, easier time like trying to choose like what plugins you're trying to use. But obviously, like experimentation, like outside, like if you completely ignore what I just said, like experimentation from outside is also cool.
Definitely. I feel like finding a balance between, taking the time to really know your DAW, and I'm talking like know all the hotkeys, know, where to find all your plugins and everything, but then also knowing how to make the plugins work. Those are like two vital things
Yeah.
that'll just carry you really far, which makes the experimenting way more fun.
I remember Nick Mira, his hotkeys and stuff when he was cooking up on Internet Money tutorials. Like, that's crazy. Like, I got to get to that level.
Yeah. It's like inspiring when you see somebody who has a really quick workflow and they just know the
Yeah.
DAW like it's nothing, because you almost can't keep up. And you're like, I see how that makes the process that much easier.
That helps, especially when you're in the studio. For sure.
Have you ever
'Cause
been
you
to
gotta
a pro
speed is everything.
studio?
I haven't been to an actual studio, but like I've been to like sessions where we're just cooking up and making beats.
Definitely. What are those like processes kind of like? Like, I don't really cook up too much with a bunch of people like that, so I'm always curious what it's like.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's really just a matter of like bouncing ideas off one another.
And does one of you
I haven't made any samples with anybody though. It's just been like beats.
Okay. Do you do
Yeah,
do you
so
do
it's
both?
just how you see it. Yeah.
Do you kind of like split your time evenly between both, or you just kind of go off of like whatever you're feeling more at that moment?
Personally, whatever. It's a mix of like whatever I'm feeling more or whatever I need more, like what I need to do.
How do you feel like you keep the knife sharp at both of those skills?
Just kind of putting your hours in. I feel like also experimenting a lot, especially on the drum side. Like a lot of my friends have been like switching it up with the drums, like they're crazy. Like it's just different. Like I need to choose like more like out of the box sounds, and maybe not so much as far as drums. Maybe not so much relying on placement drums,
Yes.
rather than just experimenting.
I think that's an important thing to know as far as making beats. Like choosing
Yeah.
different, like to me lately what's been making or breaking a good producer for me is like their drum selection, like the snare sound. Because I feel like everybody, we all have access to splice. We all have the same hi-hats. We all have the same claps and kicks and all that stuff. Like, everybody's got the OZ kit. Everybody's got the Murder Beats kit, the Sunny Digital kit.
Yeah.
And when you're using a lot of the same sounds, you have to find ways to manipulate them and make yourself stand apart from the rest, I feel like.
Yep. For sure.
All right. We'll wind down the interview here. We'll go to the final five. This is kind of the deeper side of things, but it's always a good way to end the podcast, I feel like. So,
Yep.
What is something you wish more people did in their music?
Something. I feel like more people should pay attention to what they're making. Kind of, if that makes sense. Like, kind of put in every little detail.
Definitely.
Just really like focus in and just create. It all goes back to like literally like I know like everybody's gonna say it, but it literally all goes back to feeling.
Yeah, that's the most important thing when you're creating music, because that's why we listen to music, is to resonate with whatever we're feeling in that moment, whether it's anger, happiness, sadness, joy. I feel like there's like a
I
song
feel like
for
a lot of
everything.
new stuff is dropping. Like, I don't know. There's not that much feeling.
No, I mean, it feels like a lot of the stuff at the end of the day is all about a bottom line. It's all about a profit. And it's funny because a record label and things now, it almost seems they're like outdated and archaic, because you could do everything independently with the internet, from recording all your records in your bedroom and making samples in your room and doing everything in a room. It's almost like the labels are just trying to siphon off the people now, or, they're still trying to support this outdated model.
Yeah, and nobody's going for it. So it's just not. Doesn't make sense.
I know.
But like that's where like I feel like that's kind of where all that comes from.
100%. That's why the feeling's gone, is because there is no feeling when all you care about is making money.
Yeah, we'll bring it back though.
That's what I'm thinking.
Only a matter of time.
That's I've read Questlove's biography, his book, before, and he always talks about how music seems like it's on this pendulum. It's swinging. It'll go, in the late 90s, it was like everything was really digital and boy bands and stuff. And then the early 2000s come around, and then you have John Mayer and Jack Johnson and these more like acoustic, real musicians. And then end of the 2010s comes around, you have Dr. Luke and this really like EDM digital thing. And then, you go back to the mid 2000s or like
I
late.
feel like we're in the really like middle right now.
Yes. The pendulum's starting to reverse the other way.
Yeah.
'Cause you're-
I really like what like the underground people are doing. But I feel like we'll get into that
Yeah,
with the where I see music.
definitely.
But I feel like we are in the middle right now.
I would agree. Where do you see music going in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So like I was saying, like I really like the underground, the kind of wave that they're going for. Like a lot of people in the underground are really versatile. Like they can go from like the rage beats to like the plug beats or whatever. But they might not show it, but they can also do like a lot of R&B stuff or kind of like more emotional kind of stuff.
Definitely.
So as far as like underground rap, I feel like I feel like the mainstream might become a little more accepting.
I feel that way too.
Because that's like after all, that's where kind of I got my first like break, I guess you could say, like in the underground.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what would you say is the best way for a sample maker to improve their samples?
Best way to improve samples, I would say, definitely listen to other people's work, and listen. That also goes back to what I was trying to say earlier. Like, listen to what you want to make.
Definitely.
Like, so obviously when I started like late 2019ish, I wanted to make more Kingsway kind of samples. So I listened to like Kingsway stuff. I listened to Drum Broker. I just kind of studied it. I remember some people like told me when they started out, they like bought all their packs, listened to it like with the stems and all of that.
That's what I've done.
You could do that if you want to. Yeah. It's definitely a good method to figure out like where all that comes from. But then also, there's an issue with that, a slight issue.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to become them.
No, not at all.
That's terrible. You got it. So you can obviously take elements from that sound, and then bring it over to yourself. Just kind of create your own sound.
I agree.
That's okay. So yeah, in summary, get inspiration from other people and just create your own sound, and also just practice, basically,
Of course.
and get familiar.
Put in the hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like for me, I know when I was listening to the stems and breaking them down, it was, for me personally, it was more so about learning how everything interacted. It was like, okay, I hear what these guitars are doing. Like, what's the bass line doing? How do these harmonize? Like, what notes of the chord is the bass playing or whatever? And then even like listening to a top line and kind of figuring out, like transcribing the sample by ear and like playing some of the parts. You're like, oh, these notes are, the 7th and 9th of the chord. And like, that's what's making this feel a certain way. And I feel like that's really important. Or if you're just starting out and maybe you don't know music theory, like I know in Ableton, I would drop in the stems of say one stem layer was like a piano, like it was piano chords and melody and a lot of movement. In Ableton, you can right click on it and like on an audio clip and hit convert harmony to MIDI, and it'll convert all of that into the MIDI, and you can look at it and you can kind of, and it's not perfect, but it helps you kind of see, oh, these are the notes they're playing, these are the chords. Like, how can I write my own progressions that are similar but different, similar but not the same.
Yeah. So yeah, that goes back to like when I was like kind of going through the same phase. I used Melodyne for that. It does the same kind of thing. But then I kind of strayed away from it and just started going more towards like what I feel.
Definitely.
Cause like there's just a lot of people like running around with 1.5s right now. So
that is the curse of trap music, bro, is the minor 1.5. And it sounds great.
I mean,
though.
it still sounds good.
I know,
and I still use it.
And I know.
I still use it.
I do too, bro. I use it all the time. And it's just, like when something works, it works.
It is what it is, man.
Yep. And I feel like that's another thing to be said is, don't get lost in the craziest chords and this and that. Because there's things that work in theory, like on paper, they work. But then you hear them and you're like, this is just jazz, bro. This isn't even giving me like a feeling.
Yeah.
This doesn't even sound cool. This is just like weird, and my ear doesn't give me a feeling.
Yeah. I feel like this new generation, I feel like it's kind of working like in the future.
Definitely.
Like I feel like this generation of sample makers, like all like off Kingsway stuff like that, like they just work in the future. It's crazy to watch.
I know. That's why I started this podcast and even got into sample making, was because to me, I saw the future of music, and I wasn't in love with what I was hearing on the radio and stuff, and I wanted more. And I feel like these are people who love this so much that even if they didn't make a dollar, they'd still be making samples.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely correct for sure.
What is the worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice. So, especially if you're all right. So, say you're a sample maker, you got asked for samples from someone. Let's say, like some random art, like a big artist, right? So, if they ask you for something, for I don't know, let's say like Lil Baby, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they ask you for something for Lil Baby, right? So, I personally would not go making Lil Baby type loops, because this goes back to what I said about living in the future. They're definitely on a different wavelength than the project that they last dropped, because that music was all recorded in 2020, and if they're getting ready to drop in 2022, then that's not the 2020 2019 vibe. So you definitely got to stay ahead, and sometimes you never even know. So that goes back to like feeling.
Definitely.
So the worst advice, for the answer of worst advice is the worst advice would be, I'm trying to like phrase it so it doesn't sound weird.
Yeah.
So the worst advice would be like making Lil Baby type loops for Lil Baby, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it. Making loops for an artist that's based off their old sound.
Yeah, you're trying to push them forward into new territory, not just like beat the dead horse of an old sound that already worked.
Exactly.
That's definitely great
100%.
advice, brother. What is the best advice you've ever received?
As far as best advice, I couldn't really come up with like a specific like best advice, but something that really stuck with me would be when I took Eli's classes. Eli Brown, he told me one thing that stuck with me. He told me the 20-80 rule. So if there's 100% of the people that you work with, like imagine like a big pie. So there's 100% of the people that you work with or send samples to. You need to always keep the 20% that are actually doing something for you. You need to always keep them in priority. You need to keep loading them up and just keep like giving them just material. So that's like a networking advice, because they're actually doing something for you, while the other 80% may get you one or two songs or something like that. But the 20% is really like where you need to focus.
That's smart. Putting your value in the people that value you.
Exactly. And that could be applied to like anything, even besides music.
I would agree. I mean, it seems like it's like that for you being involved in the Chosen Ones. It's like those people all value each other, and you guys value the music, and it's very apparent in everything you guys are creating.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's pretty much something that stuck with me.
That's amazing, bro. Well, thank you for taking all your time with me today. This has been a great interview. I'm excited to see where you're taking your sound and everything in the future. And whenever you're dropping your first pack, man, I'm going to be definitely...
It's on the way. It's definitely on the way.
I'm going to be
And
ready.
I got... I actually have a loop kit. Like, just a collection of loops that... My favorite loops from 2021 that I made. That's probably dropping the 30th.
That's awesome.
So-
It'll be like kind of like a little gift up for us
Yeah,
from the
that's
end
tomorrow.
of the year.
For us, that's tomorrow. But in the future, it'll be from the 30th. Yeah.
That's awesome, bro. Well, I'm gonna look forward to that. I'm definitely gonna be excited and keeping an eye out for everything you're doing.
And I definitely got more stuff on Loophole for sure. Loophole.
I believe it, bro.
100%.
Let's go. It's gonna be a big year for you in 2022, huh?
And 2022, yeah, 2021 was the rookie year. That's what I keep saying.
Ready to level up?
2022. One thing also,
Yeah,
going back to best advice before we end real quick.
absolutely.
I forgot who really first said it, but the stuff that you do a year ago sets you up for now. So, for example, if you were working really hard in 2021, all that is going to pay off in 2022 for sure.
I would definitely agree with
Because
that.
it'll show up. Because the music business it's just like, it's how it is. Like, it's really slow.
And it's so funny how I feel like the business changes so quick. It's like nobody wants to give you the time of day. Nobody wants to give you looks until one person gives you a chance and you have that breakthrough. And then
and then
suddenly
you're on.
everybody's like, oh, now I want to get your sound or want to work with you. And
Yeah, I feel like that. I don't know. I feel like half of that goes into branding and marketing and all that stuff, but then obviously the other half just goes to like, I don't know, human nature. I don't know.
it's FOMO. Once they see it,
Yeah,
they don't want to miss
exactly.
out.
Exactly.
Well, they
You gotta buy low.
definitely. Well, thank you so much, man. You have a great day. I'll be talking to you soon, and hope to check in and see how everything's going.
For sure. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, brother.